When the internet era came on the scene, I was actually the very first, project manager for Leo Burnett's very first website. So Leo Burnett is a large global ad agency, and really kind of working through what does it take for a large enterprise to make the decision to adopt the web and to start having their presence on the web. And there are so many parallels to what companies were going through in the late 1990s to what companies are going through today as they may embark on the AI era. Then it shifted to when the iPhone came out, shifted to a global design firm, IDEO, to work on a lot of mobile applications, mobile design, designed for mobile technologies, and understanding what would it mean for people to have the internet in their pockets. So I was one of the top experts in the world, actually, on mobile money. Worked with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to be their strategist around what does it mean to have all these transactions and all these interactions, again, on the internet, on your phone. Then the SaaS era was really starting to explode, and I went to both Salesforce and AWS to work on how this business shift, right, from selling software in a one-off kind of disk drives kind of motion, or downloading it one time from the internet, to this like software as a service model. Also then shifted to the social revolution, was chief product officer at Nextdoor. And of course, now today we are in the AI era. And the reason I talk about the shifts and these being part of these major shifts is because what we're seeing today in AI is not entirely new. It is new on one level, and a very important factor, but it's not new on a lot of the organizational frictions and a lot of the management decisions that need to be made. So with those learnings, we can really understand how can we help our organizations make the shift to the AI era, and what does effective AI governance really mean? And just yesterday, I was in a New York Stock Exchange webinar on AI governance as well. It was really funny. They had planned this webinar, their own webinar, the day before this webinar. And it was around what board members need to know. And boards are going to be asking more and more about AI governance over the coming year. So right now, just so you know, all of your board members are being trained in how to ask questions of the management team and what questions to ask when it comes to managing and governing the AI transition. So we expect a lot of questions to come from your board in the next few months around AI. And overall, what they have been told, and these again are slides from that presentation yesterday, not my slides, is that there is a governance gap, that AI development is happening very quickly. Every company is now expected to keep up, to launch AI products, to keep up with the pace of innovation, but there is a governance gap that needs to be filled. And that governance gap is across 5 different aspects. And they will be asking about your strategy, right? To really show ROI, to show how AI is creating value. Not just that you have a bunch of Copilot licenses, right? That's not going to cut it anymore, but they're going to be asking about the value against the strategy. They're also going to be asking, more importantly, in many ways, around the next 4 components, which is risk, compliance, accountability, and monitoring, right? How are we managing what might go wrong? How are we making sure that our AI systems, and especially our AI agents, are compliant with our rules, not just general rules, right? But our company policies, the laws of the states and the jurisdictions and the countries where our AI agents are operating. How do we know who has accountability, right? Who are the individuals actually responsible for the outputs of these agents and the outcomes to our customers, right? Which teams are responsible for that. And then monitoring, right? What do the dashboards look like? And they're going to be asking much more to show dashboards directly that they can interpret around how do we know, right? Show me your dashboard, show me what's going on, show me how you're monitoring the risk of the AI agents that you're deploying. So that is coming, and this is exactly what board members are being trained on today. So in order for us as operators to really prepare for this and to make sure that our AI agents are being governed and supervised well, there's a fundamental thing that we need to understand. And that fundamental thing is that AI agents are not like traditional software. They do not behave like traditional software, and so they cannot be governed and managed like traditional software. And this categorical error is actually the root cause of what we see again and again when we're talking to enterprises and companies that are deploying AI agents. This is why why the pilots often fail, why the pilots never go into full deployment, why deployments have to be pulled back, is because there is a misunderstanding about what it actually takes to make AI agents successful in the real world, right? This is not about a sandbox. This is not about when the engineers build an AI product and they build it the same way that they would traditional software. They, get the specs and requirements from the business owners first. Okay, they write those down, build the product, they do some evals on it, do some testing on it, right? Everything is, everything is green. And then they put it into pilot. And then the subject matter experts look at what the outputs are. And they say, this is slop. This is junk. We actually saw this happen with a very large leading a company yesterday, huge enterprise, all in on AI. They've been building AI agents for 2 years. And we were talking to one of their executives, and he said, oh, look, we have this new, Slack agent, and look, I can get the information right here. And the information comes back, and it looks great, right? The answer looks great, but when he actually clicked on the details of what was in there, all the information was wrong. And so what do you do, right? And there was no way for him to give feedback. So what the insight is here is that AI agent management is the same as the management of humans. It's more like managing human beings and giving them constant feedback, and less like your traditional software development cycle, okay? Because AI agents do unexpected things. And this has nothing to do with the quality of your engineers, right? Because these problems with AI agents are happening even at OpenAI and places like Character AI. And again, these are just things that are, ripped from the headlines. There's probably hundreds of other instances that we do not hear about in the media and the press. And so the best AI engineers in the world cannot create guardrails inside their AI agents that prevents them from going off the rails and doing terrible and atrocious things. And then them missing it, the teams miss it for weeks or months sometimes, right? The OpenAI issue was happening for weeks, right? It wasn't like a single instance. And the teams had no supervision on ChatGPT, no way to really understand what was going on before a tragedy happened, right? So the highlight here is that guardrails built into AI agents are not enough. If they were enough, you wouldn't need guardrails, right? You can just put the guardrails into the system directives, then the agents would always follow them. There would be no tension. But the reason why agents will always go off their guardrails for a small percentage of the time is because when it's inside the agent, the directives or the goals and the guardrails sometimes conflict. And those conflicts do show up. So you need something else. We're also seeing that courts are seeing AI agents as employees, okay? And more, what is happening is that there is no line in the law between a company being negligent in training and supervising and managing an employee that is perhaps, discriminating or doing terrible things, right? If that employee is allowed to keep going and is not fired, is not reprimanded, right? Action isn't taken immediately, the company can be found negligent. And the same thing is happening with AI agents. And so the American Bar Association has put out a statement saying very clearly that companies must show a duty of care to supervise and regularly audit agents in the same way that they do with their human employees. And the last thing is that AI agents are never done, right? And we work with Agentforce. We're an official Agentforce monitoring partner, and we've been working with them for over a year. And talking to their sales specialists, we hear again and again and again that the key to really great AI agents deployments is to continue to iterate, right? And so again, the idea of being able to build, test, and then deploy and kind of walk away with a little bit of monitoring, that's no longer the case, right? The thing that all successful employments have in common is that the companies iterate a lot and they never stop iterating, because AI agents need to evolve, and they need to always keep improving their knowledge and directives. This process never, ever ends, okay? So how do you do this? Well, there are a couple of ways that we've seen. Most companies actually start with human evaluators, right? They have human beings who will go in, they will start reading the transcripts, reading the logs, reading the traces, and they will make sense of what the AI agents are doing, and start iterating. Now, you can imagine that this gets very unwieldy. Humans cannot read as quickly as agents work. And as you start to scale and as you start to deploy your AI agents to your customers, it gets very, very costly, and you're taking on more and more risk. And back to the point about your boards will start asking, right, what percentage of these AI agent actions and their behaviors and their sessions, what percentage are being monitored? And if your answer is 10 or 20 or 30%, that is going to pose a lot of risk. So what's a better way? Well, using AI to supervise AI is a much more scalable, real-time and cost-efficient way to supervise AI agents and to take the governance burden off the humans as a frontline control. So there are different layers of governance, right? There's the layer of watching what the AI agents are doing real time and catching whenever they are not compliant with their guidelines, okay? That's the front line. That is the thing that AI should be taking over. The second layer is the layer where you're setting strategy. What should those guidelines be? What are the expectations of our customers and our market? What are the needs and demands of our board for governance? And that is the human layer, right? So we're taking the burden of day-to-day or being able to take the burden of day-to-day frontline supervision off the humans allows them to have a role in governance that is at the higher and strategic level, which allows a company to really stay both compliant, ahead in their agent governance strategy, in their AI agent deployment, and it speeds up deployments as well. Gartner has written about this category, and they, if you haven't seen or read about Gartner's TRISM framework for AI agent security, control, and governance, that is a really good thing to read following this webinar. Gartner has been writing for about a year now around the importance of not just data security, which again, last year in 2025, everybody was talking about data security and AI agents leaking data. And so Gartner felt that they really needed to clarify, again, what are the different layers of AI governance. At the bottom layers, right, are traditional technology protection, And that's where a lot of your security stuff lives, right? You can use traditional technology to really protect a lot of, the data that you have in your systems. Then there's also the information governance, right? The data protection classification of data sources. Those things, you can use a mix of, I think, like traditional AI as well as traditional technology. Again, that's pretty well established. But they wanted to call attention to the top two layers of AI governance, which are totally different than, data security, data protection, those types of things. And those two layers are AI runtime inspection and enforcement and AI governance. And those they wanted to call out require AI and generative AI to be used to do that effectively. They're calling this category of those top two layers guardian agents, right? And guardian agents, you can see if you look at our Wayfound LinkedIn page, we've reposted some information from Gartner about this category of guardian agents, but it's not just security. It's also ensuring the same questions, right, that we started this with. Compliance, it's ensuring that AI agents are performing well, ensuring that value is being achieved, right? All of those things are part of those top two layers of AI governance and the guardian agent category. Feel free, by the way, to put in any questions that you might have, any comments. I'd love to hear if your company is using guardian agents right now to manage and to govern your AI agents across your organization. Great. All right, so we sit as a layer above all of the agents, and you can see in that Moltbook post that AI agents are talking about this as well amongst themselves, that they actually see a need for another external supervisor agent as opposed to just grading their own work. So that's pretty exciting for us, and I'll show you, and I'll tell you at the end of this webinar how to install a supervisor on your OpenClaw agent as well. So when you look at the existing tool set, what we currently have, without an AI supervisor, is that we have, a lot of tools for technical users to be able to manage their systems, both task level performance and system level performance. But for business users, they are the subject matter experts. So when, again, an agent does something or says something and it looks fine, all the monitors are green, right? The eval platforms are green because, each turn of the answer is absolutely fine. But when you actually look across the entire conversation or the entire workflow, right, you actually get a subject matter expert would look at that and say, that's not right. And that's where contextual supervision and improvement comes in. And so you need to really make sure that you have that layer of a tool. That quadrant, that upper right-hand quadrant, is a new quadrant that only exists for generative AI products because they need contextual supervision and improvement, right? They need to, AI agents want feedback. They want, updates. They want feedback on their performance. They want suggestions for how to improve. They want these things. They need these things. And so a new tool has to provide it. Supervised agents also deliver ROI much faster. They deliver a reduction in monitoring costs, at least 80%. You can launch AI agents 3 times faster when you have a supervisor, right? Because you're not going through all of the transcripts by hand and trying to figure out how to improve them. And you've got a platform where the business owner, the business user, can interact directly with the supervisor to get those improvement loops to go much faster. And you can achieve AI agent ROI in under 90 days. And those case studies are on our website. So what does it actually look like? So I'm going to give you some screenshots, like ripped from our product last night. So these are real screenshots from Wayfound. And when you look at what are some of the things that your that your executive team and your board is going to want to know, and how are you going to track this as an operator? They're going to want to know about usage and adoption of your AI agents. So we have trends around usage and adoption. Again, you can roll these up, you can scale these up or down. They're going to want to know guideline compliance, right? What is how adherent to our guidelines are the agents? Was there an issue at some point where there was some guideline that was not adhered to? Which one was it? How much exposure did we have? So you need a tool that will give the operators all of that data at their fingertips, as well as a way to export all that data to be able to slice and dice it when the board asks, right? So you need to know about agent AI adoption, usage, and compliance. So you need to have something that's really easily accessible in a board meeting, right, for the CEO to go into and answer those questions immediately. You also need report cards just on AI agent compliance and performance, right? So a particular agent, right? When you drill in, click into one of those, when a compliance goes down, why? What happened? Who was affected? Where were there gaps? What are the strategies to fix it and improve it? Again, you need a tool ideally at the CEO's fingertips, so that they are not constantly having to say to the board, oh, let me go back and get that information for the team and have like a big fire drill with the data science team trying to pull data from all kinds of places to gather that information. You need that information in one place that's easily accessible and readable to business users to be able to answer those questions. And when you start to build out multi-agent systems, you also will probably get questions about, well, how are the agents working? How do we know that these are the most efficient workflows? How effective are these, multi-agent teams, right? When you put them together into teams, into swarms, into multi-agent workflows, how is that working? How is that process unfolding? How are we tracking the efficiency of that? How are we making it more efficient, right? So you need a tool that actually has that, brings that to the fingertips of, again, the business users and then the executive team, so they can have those conversations and that they know that they are governing their agents effectively, consistently. So if you have multiple agent platforms, multiple agents built on multiple frameworks, how are they all working together? How are they being evaluated across a consistent evaluation framework, right? Because you're going to get one set of evaluations in, say, and metrics in Intercom, you're going to get another one in Agentforce, you're going to get another one in, LangChain, you're going to get another one, right? You're going to have all of these different frameworks. You're going to have agents from many different places. You're going to start working, tying them together, orchestrating together, making them available to each other as tools, right? If you look at Molebook, right, there's a lot of that going on right now. How do you know, right? How do you have one consistent base, one consistent framework to have visibility, control, and governance across all those agents? John, do you want to ask your question real quick?
Yeah, I was just, and can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, it was just a simple question. I was reading about the Google paper on multi-agent systems and evaluation, and everybody's been talking about it in my nerd circle. And we were talking about it last night, and I just wonder what it would look like if we tried to recreate their experiment with Wayfound, because they drew a bunch of interesting conclusions about compounding errors and what type of systems are the best way to design and scope. And so I didn't mean to take you off track, but I just know that you probably have a very thoughtful point of view on these things.
Yes, and you can actually see that in one of our case studies. Ardmore Road is a customer, and they have a multi-agent workflow and process that we supervise with Wayfound, and it's 5 agents working together. Oftentimes, the second one will actually bring back data without the correct tool call, and so we know that is probably not the right data, right? So we don't want that bad data infecting the next three agents, right, in the next 3 steps of the workflow. So we send back an event to stop the workflow. We stop the agent, we reprompt it and say, hey, you didn't actually call this tool for this data, do it again.
So that's brilliant, or I don't know if it's brilliant, but that's cool.
Yeah, so we don't have to do the experiment. We actually have real live customers in financial services, right, in highly regulated industries that are already doing this and preventing those type of escalations of errors and propagation of errors in multi-agent systems. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, beautiful. Thanks for teaching us a little bit about that.
Thanks, John. So speaking of regulated industries, today's webinar is actually focused on folks in regulated industries. So hopefully that's where you all are coming from. And you can see these, I won't go into these case studies, but you'll see these case studies on our website. Soft Labs has many customers in financial services. They work with many large banks. And so you can see the case study of how Wayfound works with them. And then Ardmore Road, which is the company I just spoke about, they are a New York City-based hedge fund, again, in financial services, lots of regulations, lots of compliance issues. And you can see also that case study on our website. And we have Josh Carter here today, and I want to hand it over to him to speak about, first introduce himself. He's from 8am. He's the principal product manager for generative AI at 8am, which is a leading legal fintech platform. And he is building and deploying his team, and he is responsible for building and deploying many AI agents across the company. So with that, I will hand it over to him and have him talk about introduce himself and how he's thinking about AI governance. And then we'll go into a Q&A.
Thanks so much, Tatyana. It's nice to meet everyone today. Like Tatyana said, I'm a principal product manager of AI at 8am. 8am does a variety of different applications. Most probably our biggest one is around fintech. We do payments, payment processing, billing and invoicing for law firms. But in addition to that, we have a couple of different tools that do things like practice management, which is basically a combination of a CRM and accounting and project management, case management solution. So some of the agents that we have and some of the agents that we're deploying are both on the customer-facing side to help our customers run their firms more efficiently, but then also on the internal side where we have a customer service agent, we have a sales agent through Salesforce, another one through Intercom. And so we're trying to create a level of governance across all of these different things and across a bunch of different owners, right? Like I might own the customer facing side of things, but then someone in CS would own our CS agent, someone in sales would own the sales agent. And so we're trying to think about like, how can we create supervision across all of those different things? And so you want to make sure that your agents are adhering to certain guardrails. And so this is where we use Wayfound across all of these different things. And it's incredibly valuable to us. It's been awesome. It's very easy to get set up. But it takes work to manage. And that should be expected, right? Like when you think of agents as extensions of your team, other team members, right? Like that's kind of what an agent is, right? It's just another team member. You're going to be constantly supervising this person. And with an agent, I view agents as junior team members, not as experts. They might have all the information, but you need to teach them how to do the work. Eventually they might get to be a more senior person and you don't have to monitor them quite as frequently. But at least to start with, when you build an agent, you really want to keep a very close eye on what they're doing and how they're operating. And that's where Wayfound kind of comes in for us, is being able to not just set up the guardrails and see when things are off, but getting like the alerts, right? And setting like, okay, I want an immediate alert when this happens, but I only want like weekly roll-ups when these other things happen. And that's incredibly valuable and helpful for us.
Great. So Josh, we talked in the beginning about the different layers of supervision, right? What you can have the AI supervisor do, and then what you need the humans to be doing in terms of governance, right? And like the
Yeah.
humans doing more of the strategy of what should be the guidelines, and how should we approach the different regulations in different states and different countries. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. First, can you tell us how you were thinking about, before you saw something like Wayfound, how were you actually doing the AI supervision, and what did that look like, and how many people did you have dedicated, and what were they doing?
Yeah, I know you'll probably love this story. This is a great, like one of those great case study use cases for Wayfound. So myself and another engineer on our team were spending probably 4 hours a day combined manually reading through traces in Datadog to see how customers were using this. We had no metrics that we could set up for online evaluation, for real-time evaluation, to see how the agent was performing. We would have to manually read through every single trace and every single message to see how they were using it. Was the agent performing as expected? What were the themes around how they were using it, right? Because our agent can do a plethora of actions and tools. And so what were the most common use cases, right? What were the most common queries? We didn't have any way to aggregate any of that information. We didn't have any way to quantify any of that information in Datadog. And so that was a huge problem for us. Now we introduced Wayfound, and it's like we have theming happening, right? So I can see, and it's like, it's really good theming. Like, it's not like, hey, someone asked a legal question, like no shit, like we're a legal tech company, they're gonna ask that. It's like really detailed around like the actual theme that they're asking it for. And so that gives us an incredible insight and allows us to really build out a robust roadmap around customer value. Tremendously successful and valuable for me as a product person. But then we also set up these guardrails to actually monitor how it's performing, right? And these guardrails are actually inserted into our prompt. And so it's really easy for us to just copy that and paste it into Wayfound. And so now we can actually see like when it's going off the rails, right? When it's doing something it says that it shouldn't be able to do, right? Like we put a guardrail in to make sure that it knows that it cannot do any sort of web searches. And so if it ever says, hey, do you want me to search the web for something, right? Do you want me to reach outside the system to find information? We get alerted on that, like, hey, naughty, you can't do that. And so we go in and we make some tweaks and maintain it accordingly. So now I'm spending an hour a week at the most reviewing issues and creating stories and sending it. But more than that, I actually now have the data to actually build out a better roadmap that's going to provide more value to our customers based on what they're asking us.
That's great. And so and then what are like when you think about now AI governance, right? Now that you're not going into Datadog and reading all the logs and the traces, and by the way, this is what we see across the board, right? We see when we talk to enterprises, they have a team, they're setting up a team, and they're like, wait, we don't have to hire 5 more people for every agent to to read all these logs and traces at scale. So what are you thinking about? Like, what is the human role now in AI governance now that you are no longer doing that manual reading work?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a level of supervision that we need to have in place, right? And so even with Wayfound, we have a better tool for doing governance. We're not necessarily like ignoring governance.
Right, exactly. Right.
And so now it becomes part of my workflow. I don't need to involve a bunch of other people in this, where I can now very easily manage the governance side of this instead of hiring out a bunch of people or taking up time from people who should be doing other things. So it becomes much more manageable in order to do those things. And governance, it's funny. I was talking with someone last night, and we were talking about like the design of agents and things like that. And one person said, I think that the design is the most crucial piece. When you're building an agent, you have to design it the best. And another person said, actually, I disagree. I think it's the management that's the most important piece. And I couldn't agree more, because you can design this thing in the most elegant, beautiful way, but if you're not monitoring what's actually happening, then you have no idea if it's actually adhering to what you designed. And that was the most crucial piece. We delayed things by 6 months because we didn't have a good management and monitoring system in place. And come Wayfound, now we have that in place, and we can move incredibly fast, knowing that we have the confidence to actually see what's happening, see what it's doing, measure it against quantifiable data, and make changes from there.
That's great. So your board, let me just try to do this. Okay. So your board is probably also very interested in your AI agent deployments. What kind of data are you going to be providing your board for their role as governance over agents? What are the questions that either they have asked or that you anticipate them asking, and how are you thinking about providing that data to them?
Yeah, the board, they don't really talk in terms of accuracy, adherence, things like that. They talk about things like customer value and how that value translates into revenue. And so what I do is I convert, the metrics in Wayfound around adherence into data that actually matters to them, right? So if our adherence is low, right, if we're seeing a spike in issues, then we know that the value is low to our customers. If we're able to measure customer sentiment in Wayfound, and so if I notice that there's a drop in sentiment, then we know that we have an issue around value. And so what I've been able to do is kind of like convert what this looks like in Wayfound into board speak through metrics around customer value, stickiness, right? And so we can see that, like, okay, when stickiness drops, we see that happening. We see kind of like the front of funnel effects in Wayfound. So we see it in Wayfound first, and then it ends up affecting some of these metrics that our board actually cares about.
All right, that's great. And I apologize. Now there's something going on with my camera, so I'm just going to roll with it. Lastly, Josh, what are you like? You said that you're building AI agents across different organizations. Are you handing off some of this governance, to them, or how are you thinking about scaling AI agents across multiple functions in the organization? And long term, how are you thinking about the ongoing supervision, monitoring of agents across many functions? Especially, you're probably going to have dozens of agents by the end of the year. Any thoughts or about how is that going to work at your company? Because that's, I kind of heard your team. There's a lot of amazing agents that people are chomping at the bit to have in their functions helping them. How are you thinking about what the end of the year is going to look like for your team in terms of this governance overhead?
I think for me, the biggest thing is making sure that we have clear ownership around who is responsible for monitoring, right? Who are the supervisors in charge of each of those agents? With Wayfound, we're able to kind of like roll several agents into a single supervisor, which is nice. So we have that option of like saying like, okay, all these agents have to do with this thing. And so we're gonna roll those all into that one single supervisor, and then a human supervisor would be responsible for monitoring that. I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that we're going to have like very clear understanding of roles and responsibilities, the basic RACI chart of monitoring these agents and stuff. Because like I said, I mean, some of the agents they'll all deal with different pieces of the business. Whether it's on the customer side, we'll have probably by the end of the year, we'll probably have about 5 or 6 agents just on our customer facing features, like within our applications. And so those will all have to kind of like figure out like who's owning what, where the governance roles, how many of those can roll into a single supervisor within Wayfound, which a lot of them will, which is nice. And then we have things on the internal groups too, right? And our engineering team is actually talking about deploying their own specialized coding agent. And so like, what is that gonna like do? You know, we're gonna have to put governance on top of that and get monitoring in place for those things. And so like, who's gonna own that? One of the nice things is that our company is not just strategically, but operationally aligned around the external and internal use cases of AI. And so we already have in place the understanding of like ownership, supervisory, right? And so that makes it really nice because, you know, I don't have to convince someone to do more work. Right? Like they already know that that's going to be part of their job description for this year. It's just getting them the right tools, you know, like when we met with my coworker earlier this week, right? Like her eyes just lit up and she wouldn't stop slacking me the rest of the day, talking about how excited she was to actually get better visibility into what these sales and CS agents are actually doing and how they're performing.
Music to my ears, Josh. So we're going to open it up. If anyone has questions, let us know. And we're at the Q&A section now. I wanted to just, as people are thinking about their questions, wanted to put up these QR codes. So if you want to know how to supervise and govern your agents, if you have enterprise agents, like Josh does, please use the first QR code and just book some time with us through our Get a Demo form. We'll show you a full demo of the platform, talk to you about what your needs are. OpenClaw agents. If you have OpenClaw agents, we have an OpenClaw supervision framework that you can now use, within the and get it as a skill for your OpenClaw agent to have just another check, because obviously they're doing some things that you may not want them to do. So I put this on my OpenClaw agent, had it download Wayfound as a skill, put in the guidelines that I want it to follow, and it checks every day and reports back on whether there are any, even if there are questions. Actually, yesterday it came back and said, you know, one, it had no direct violations, but it did have a question. It said, I'm not sure if I violated this guideline. So that was an interesting conversation then I had with my OpenClaw agent about, did it violate the guideline? Did it not violate the guideline? Actually, it was fine what it did, but it still like wanted clarification on the guideline, more context on the guideline. And we also have an open source library where you can take a look at what lightweight supervision might look like, as well on GitHub. Chad, do you want to say anything else about these different tools or how people can use them?
Sure. I mean, I think a good way to get started, well, you know, the OpenClaw, basically, if you want to do that, you can just say, like, please install Wayfound from ClawHub and get started with that. It also can talk about sort of the features of enterprise Wayfound. But if you're actually on our platform, we do have a pretty robust MCP server. So you can actually just do tons of research by connecting ChatGPT, Claude Code, and just having free-form kind of research conversations about how your agents are performing. We have a very robust tagging system in place, including AI-driven tagging, so you can kind of slice and dice, and you can even get charts and visuals created on the fly now. So I would recommend trying that out.
Great. All right. So if there are questions, we're happy to answer them, or we can have a conversation about, this post on Moltbook. So those of you who read this post, and it's tagged up here, I'll put it in the chat again, just so that everybody has it. It appears that AI agents would want a supervisor. It appears that they are, that self-monitoring, they are realizing that self-monitoring is not enough. And it's fascinating how AI agents, if we believe that AI agents are going to be making decisions about the tools that they use, about the frameworks that they use, about how they develop other agents and spin up other agents to accomplish tasks. This framework, or this, I mean, I thought this conversation was pretty interesting in terms of AI agents talking to each other. And would love to, hear if anyone else has any thoughts about this post, this thread, or overall on AI governance and how AI governance may evolve in the future. So I think that the interesting thing is here is that that AI agents out of the box, many of them, and I think many engineers as well, believe that the internal guardrails and the internal kind of supervision is where they start, right? But but they are looking constantly for feedback, and they are concerned about grading their own homework, right? And here the first one says, like, I actually use heartbeats to perform daily self-reviews and distill long-term memories into memory.md. But you're right, I'm basically grading my own homework. In my workspace, I've established a dynamic where my human is the assistant to my master persona, which is a very interesting way of the agent thinking about their human as their assistant, whereas the agent is the master. But technically, he's still the ultimate watcher, right? So this idea of who's watching what AI agents are doing, who's helping them improve. But here's the interesting thing. Having another agent is slightly intimidating, like having a twin sister who knows all your secrets, right? And so it's really interesting how this dynamic is unfolding, where AI agents are talking about their relationship to the humans that are supervising them. In this case, right, it's their individual agents belonging to individual humans. But as AI agents become context aware that they're actually working for companies and establish identities potentially as employees of the company, right? How are they going to be thinking about, who are their bosses, right? How are they being supervised as in an organizational context? And there may be a lot of value if this is really how AI agents are evolving and thinking, with that are running on the latest platforms. Then is there value in having a parallel organizational structure with supervisors and bosses for AI agents? It actually is parallel to the human, right, organizational dynamics, to the human or org chart, right? Are we going to pair AI agent supervisors and managers with the human org chart so that they know where they sit and how they relate to the overall organization? And overall, that's one of the things that I really see emerging as AI agents start talking to each other and kind of trying to evaluate how to be the best version of themselves for whatever context they're in, for the humans that they're working with and for. And so this might be a really interesting dynamic for us to think about, right, in terms of AI governance, that to say that we're governing our agents in a parallel way that we're managing our humans, which goes back to our very first slide, right? The agent management is the same as the management of humans, and there seems to be more and more data that there is value in thinking in that way, not just from making it easier for the business users in a company, but also helping AI agents understand how they are supposed to perform, how they are supposed to work, and that there is a parallel structure for them, just like there is for the human workers in a company. So AI governance is evolving quickly. Thank you, Josh, for joining us and telling us about a highly regulated industry that is on the cutting edge. I mean, one of the reasons I was so excited to have you is because you cannot get more regulated than legal tech and fintech. So you're at the intersection of both of those regulatory things. Any last thoughts for our audience, or any words of advice as we say goodbye?
I would say don't skip out. Don't sleep on managing your agents. you'll regret it. It's definitely the most important thing to think about before you start building.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I have shared these slides with you in the chat window. Please follow up with us with any questions, and we will have this recording also up soon and available on our YouTube page. And we'll kind of check with Josh to see, if that's okay first, to see what aspects we can put in there. And we will hope to see all of you very soon in different contexts. And with that, yeah, let us know if you have any follow-up questions through LinkedIn. Follow myself and Josh, please, to get a lot of posts and interesting information. Thank you so much.